Okay, I'm back. And this time we're going to talk about the finances of Scott and Lacey Peterson. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because this was one of the motives that the police and prosecution put forward. Remember, they had at first said, maybe it was the girlfriend. He wanted to be with Amber, so he made sure Lacey and Connor were no longer in the picture. Some say that he didn't want to have children, and that's why he would have killed her. But there was also a really big financial motive that the police thought played into it. There was a lot of allegations made about Scott's financial situation, that they were in over their heads, that maybe Lacey's taste may have been a little bit higher than Scott could really afford, and that he was having a very hard time keeping up with the pretenses. There were allegations that he was embezzling from his company. There was also concern about his businesses was struggling. The Trade Corps, the parent company, was really struggling, and then that would cause Scott financial ruin. There were a lot of allegations, and especially the life insurance policy that somehow the Modesto Bee was told about, Brocchini, and they printed it with a huge headline that Scott had actually potentially murdered his wife for a life insurance payout. And then never mind the strange behavior, right? All the selling of stuff. I even said in an earlier video, he sold some of her jewelry. He was selling her car. He was trying to sell the home. So there was a lot of stuff that gave a lot of indication that financially he was near ruin. And the prosecution did put up several witnesses that tried to demonstrate this fact. So let's go through it together. And as per usual, I'm reading from a whole bunch of notes that I've put together. And these are all really things I've pulled out of testimonies and evidence, and I have some photos and those kinds of things. So let's get into it. And I'm going to try to do point counterpoint, but there's also times where I really honestly don't know what the point is. Like some of these witnesses testify to things and I was like, okay. So we're going to decide together if this tells the story. So we're going to start with a couple of prosecution witnesses. So the first two that the prosecution calls are two people who work at a place called Edwards Jewelry, and they're going to testify to two main things. Lacey's a pretty regular customer there, so they know her. She's been there before for different work. One important thing is that Lacey had dropped off her wedding ring there because she was having it kind of redesigned and rebuilt. She had recently lost her grandmother, and she had inherited about $100,000 worth of jewelry. And in that was a wedding ring, her grandmother's wedding ring, which it alone had a diamond of 2.5 carats. So it had one major stone that was 2.5 carats and then some other little diamonds around it. And then there was another ring that also had some nice diamonds in it too. So Lacey wanted this jeweler to take pieces of each of those, that big 2.5 carat stone, and she wanted them put into, her setting to basically rebuild herself a beautiful wedding ring. So that's what they were doing. That's where her ring was. The reason I think that's important is because it makes Scott look like a liar. Because when the police asked Scott on the 24th of December, the day Lacey went missing, they'd asked Scott, what was she wearing? And he said she was wearing all of her usual jewelry. She kind of wears the standard stuff every day. Diamond earrings, a necklace with a diamond pendant on it. She wears her wedding ring. She wears a watch. She was wearing all the basic stuff she always wears. And there are two other people that testified that that is Lacey's normal thing. The jeweler attests that's what she usually wears when she comes in. And her yoga instructor said that's usually what she wears when she comes to them as well. So that's Lacey's uniform, if you will. But the trick is that she didn't have her wedding ring. Her wedding ring was at the shop. So is Scott a liar, or is he just really wildly unobservant? Or did Lacey not tell him that she was taking some of that inherited jewelry and putting it into a new ring for herself? Now, my mind is I don't care why Lacey did it. She deserves to do whatever she wants to with the money she inherited. That's her option. But I think the point here is that they're trying to make it seem like Scott lied to the police. It's possible that he did. They also testified that on November 20th, Lacey dropped off her watch for repair. Let me show you a couple of items. So here's the receipt, right? So this is, she drops off this watch on 11/20. They basically say, they say right here, it is a lady's gold watch, 14 karat gold. It is not keeping time. They call her. She comes to pick it up on 12/13. That's an important date. She comes to pick it up on 12/13. But this is the watch they said that she dropped off because it wasn't working. The woman at the shop testified the brand of the watch was not I think it's pronounced Croton, Croton. That's the watch that everybody's asking about, but this lady was adamant it was a different brand. The jeweler said it was this brand. I think it's pronounced Geneva, maybe Geneve. Anyway, shows you how many fancy watches I have. But this is essentially what she described, a gold watch with diamonds around the face. It was a lady's dress watch. It was by this brand down here. I just found this on Etsy, but this is very similar to the watch she said that Lacey dropped off to have repaired. And then Lacey came back to pick it up on the 13th. And the reason that date is important is because the Lacey told the woman, I'm going to a Christmas party, because Lacey had had her nails done. She was going to a Christmas party. And the woman testified that she believes that's the watch that Lacey's wearing right there. That's the watch she just had repaired. So that is the watch, but that doesn't seem to solve the mystery of the other watch that everyone's talking about. Now, of all that jewelry she got from grandma, she's not going to keep it all, right? So Lacey makes 2 trips to pawn shops. She goes on December 10th and she goes on December 14th, okay? Now, when you go to this pawn shop, and the 2 pawn shop people also testified, when they buy jewelry from you, that is all the pawn shops, I don't know if this is a law in California, but this is what they require, is that you're required to provide a picture ID, which they took Lacey's picture ID, they put it into the system, and then her thumbprint. So the first time she went on 12/10, she provided all this information. They set her up with an account. She sold some chains, some gold chains that she'd inherited, and got, I think it was like $140 for them or something. And she goes back on the 14th. And this time Scott is with her. And this date's important because this is Saturday the 14th. This same night will be the night that Lacey goes to that Christmas party by herself, while Scott goes to a Christmas party with Amber. But this is in the morning and they're together at the pawn shop. The lady testifies, the pawn shop lady that is, she testifies that Lacey had forgotten her ID. And so she said, well, can you use my husband's ID? So they said, sure, no problem. So they take Scott's ID and they essentially put Scott's name on the pawn receipt because Scott is technically now the seller. So you see, this is the first one. Lacey's name is up at the top. You see the date and time. These are the gold chains she went to sell. Now, according to the witness, like I saw this and I thought, look, Scott's selling her jewelry, but they were at the pawn shop together. The only reason Scott's name is on this is because Lacey failed to bring her ID. So you can see they sold some gold chains, a couple of rings and a pendant. So this is all, but this is how it ended up under Scott's name. One last thing about this pawn shop visit where they're both there together. The woman helping them testified that there was something interesting about their behavior. She testified that Lacey was noticeably getting upset with Scott. And when asked why, she'd said that Scott was acting a little too affectionate toward his wife. She testified that Scott was putting his arms around Lacey and he was rubbing her belly and he kept calling attention to her belly and kept touching her stomach. And finally, Lacey was like, stop it, like, stop, like, go stand over there. Because Scott was feeling like he was being amorous toward his wife in the pawn shop. Now, it could be that Scott was feeling guilty because in about an hour and a half, he's about to ditch his wife and go to a Christmas party with another woman and spend the night with somebody else. So maybe he's just trying to put up a front. I don't know. But according to the lady at the pawn shop, Scott seemed very engaged and playful with Lacey's belly that day. More testimony coming back up. Please come back for the next video.